Hey guys, this is Hunter Levine, and thank you for checking out the Captain's Collective podcast. Brought to you by Skinny Water Culture, Costa Sunglasses, Florida Fishing Products, Turtle Box Audio, and the Drifter Fish Club. Today we have a special episode with my friend Casey Anderson, who's an artist and tattooer who decided to join us at our most recent Drifter Redfish Camp to hang out, eat food, chase fish, and of course share a few stories. In this podcast, Casey shares with us his story about how he got into fishing and tattooing, but also shares with us some of the lessons and things that he's learned along the way about how he sees the world. We hope that you guys enjoy this and get a lot from it. If you'd like to learn more about Drifter Fish Club, head to drifterfishclub.com. You can check out all things travel fishing there, and we hope that you guys enjoy. Thanks for checking out. This is the Captain's Collective. Hey, well, thanks for hanging out, dude, at Redfish Camp. You know, I've got to hang out with you at ICAST and maybe a couple other spots. Maybe it was just ICAST, but really glad that you were able to come down, spend the weekend with us, did a little bit of fishing together, got some time on the boat, shared a bunch of meals, and I'm just grateful that you carved out the time to come down here and be a part of all what Drifter's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you told me about what was going on, I was all about it. You know what I mean? I think it was at ICAST we started talking about it. I think it was at ICAST.
Yeah, you were doing me and Chase's best friend tattoos.
Yeah, twinning tats. And then I think that sparked it for you too, because you saw how busy it was, and you're like, oh, this could be a thing. And it was a thing.
Yeah.
It was totally a thing.
Yeah, we had you know, the typical Redfish Camp setup we do with good food, good people, good guides, and we wanted to make this one rats and tats, you know, rat reds and tats, and you know, it's fun because you know you get to like hang out, and it was really meaningful to people, I think, because something you and I were talking about was a lot of people when they first start thinking about tattoos is like they're like, what does it symbolize? Like, what does the actual art of it symbolize? And then there's this whole deeper, I think, level of meaning of where am I in my life, like big picture wise, where am I in my life, and then also like geographically, like I'm at Redfish Camp with my friends, like, you know, catching my first red on fly, or you know, so I think there's something really, really special to that. And as an artist, like something I really appreciate about being around you is you don't mail it in, you know, like you're really engaged with people, like you spend the time talking with them, like figuring out what they want, kind of what's going to really work and not work. So I loved getting a chance just to watch you tattoo some. I think you did like 6.
Yeah, 6 or 7. I think we
Including
might have done
my
more.
dad.
I think we might have done more, but those guys were drinking the buckets of margaritas. So I think my my clientele went down after everybody decided they were gonna. They needed it. They worked real hard. So
When I saw the
But
margaritas, I thought it was gonna it was
my
gonna go
business
up
either
or it was gonna go down.
yeah, totally. Is it gonna go? Yeah, one way or another. No, it was so cool. Especially people's first tattoos. You know what I mean? Like your first tattoo ever is at Redfish Camp. And I think that says a lot too. And like going back to the, you know, figuring people out as like some of my favorite parts about tattooing is like you can derive an aesthetic from talking to people about like what their, you know, as far as the aesthetic as what their tattoo looks like or what their tattoo is gonna, the feel it should bring for them, because everybody's different. But you know, you get. Can I say people's names?
Yeah.
So you get Bo, for example, right? And he, you know, the most people's first tattoo situations, they overthink the significance it has to be, and then also too, like if you haven't thought about it as much as say we have, right?
Yeah.
You know, like you know, having a little bit of trust in the artist goes a long way. And if, you know, they come in with a subject and he was just like, man, this is exactly what I want, where I want it. This is the place where I want it. This is the place where I want to be. These are the people I want to be around. Let's make a tattoo. And it's so much more than, you know, just the tattoo. And he didn't get the words Redfish Camp tattooed on him. You know what I mean? He got imagery that represented everything. And that was really special. And I hope people know that it's just as important to us as tattooers. And we're just as honored in our own way of like those first tattoos or tattooing your dad, you know, and that was a really beautiful conversation and time in itself too. But the first tattoos are fantastic. Like I wish I would have got my first tattoo here. Mine was like a tribal from some guy named Icebox when I was 16. You know what I mean? I don't think he tattoos anymore, you know, and it's terrible. And like now, you know, now to be able to facilitate those kind of situations, but what a better place to get your first awesome tattoo.
Yeah, and it's neat because me and you hung out during Marsh Fest. So we have
Yeah.
hung
Oh,
out
yeah.
outside of
Oh, yeah.
ICAST.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
a good time at Marsh Fest.
Yeah.
And
It feels like we hung out a lot more.
it does feel like sometimes you meet people and you have like a good connection with them,
Yeah.
and then you just feel like maybe in a former life we were boys,
Yeah,
like we were
totally.
both green herons, like,
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
tattoo that I got.
Yeah,
We were just
totally.
two green herons just
fishing
chilling,
it out.
fishing together every day. But I think like, you're an interesting kind of person within the tattoo community and an interesting person within the fishing community. Like they're two different, and I don't even know if I'm kind of moving away from in my mind, like even liking calling it a community as if like everybody's like in agreement and we have like ordinances and we're like all working together. But, like in the tattoo space, when I meet people, I don't, necessarily run to the conclusion that this is probably a bunch of guys who fly fish. Like I've met enough tattoo artists now that do fly fish. I don't think they don't, but it's not like a big part of the broader tattoo culture.
No.
And then within the fishing space, obviously tattoos have become much more common in the fishing space, but that's not deep in the origins of the fly fishing world. You went from like wearing, nice clothes and big hats, and it was all very like romantic and kind of classy.
Right.
Not that tattoos aren't classy or romantic. but
No, but
it wasn't what you thought.
Yeah,
of.
yeah. It was pictured as like almost an unattainable, older, rich guy kind of sport, And then I think with the curve and the demographic of how many young people now fish, because I mean, for a long time, there was a big generational gap in fly fishing in the industry of buyers and just people that were fishing in general. And you have a lot of the people, older people kind of maybe 50 and up. And then you have a gap in the 40s and kind of sometimes even in like the early 30s, maybe in the 50s too, like that Gen X kind of generation. There was a gap in fishing. And now within the last, especially 5 years, but particularly maybe 10 years, it's exploded, and the largest demographic of that explosion is people under 30. Mm-hmm. And so with that, you get the marketing people that want that more eccentric look, and then you get the demographic of people that normally get tattooed are now getting into the fishing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that has to do with this last recent push, because it's very new in the world of fishing and fly fishing. Everything, the tattoo integration is very recent.
But it makes a lot of sense in the fact that like this idea of storytelling visually in commemoration in the outdoor world, it makes a lot of sense. Like you got to think like 10,000 years ago, some dude killed a big elk. And he was like, I better get back to the cave and scratch that baby on there.
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, yeah.
Like some of our earliest like cave drawings, dude, or some dude just
animals.
Telling the story of like, man, this time I shot this bull elk. And so like the idea of commemoration, storytelling, and an appreciation for art was always a deep part of the history of hunting and fishing.
Absolutely.
But we've talked about this before, and I'd love for you to share your story of coming up and figuring out how those two things merged, because when you were a kid it almost seemed like a fork in the road.
Yeah, it was a fork in the road until the immersion was definitely a fork in the road until maybe a few years ago. I mean, the biggest point of separation is when I was farthest at the time. Now it's much farther, but that was the farthest point like of my career, was the biggest separation at one point. Because when I owned the tattoo shop with my buddies, and in the tattoo world, I didn't really have anybody that fished, or let alone like, I mean, I had some friends that went camping with me and stuff, but nobody really fly fished, especially onto the level that I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And then on the guide realm and the guide service, nobody tattooed. Right? Like they had some tattoos, but like the tattoo conversation was few and far between, if ever. And then a lot of your clients aren't necessarily the people who are paying for a destination trip, like to go to Pyramid Lake where I had my guide service. They're not really like your tattoo demographic. They're your I'm gonna go pay to go do some awesome fishing demographic, which at the time, wasn't the same. So there was this huge separation in myself, I guess, almost too. I felt like two different people. Because even in a single day, there was points owning the guide service and the tattoo shop where I'd work over 100 days straight, because I couldn't, there's no break in between, especially when season's going off. You do a guide trip in the morning, midday, run to town, and like I would go from a place that looks like this, in Waders, and with in all that, and staying in our trailer and in our guide camp and stuff, to then driving into town. And now my tattoo shop is in downtown Reno, and so you're dealing with like, it was just a complete like switch over of worlds and almost characters in a sense. And I was having a weird I couldn't verbalize it or like understand it in my mind, I guess, in a sense, because I didn't want it to be two things, but at the time I felt like it had to, because I didn't know how to combine the two, I guess. And then when it started, I remember like probably the integration points that I remember as like big steps that I specifically remember as kind of catalysts was going to the fly shows, promoting our guide service, the fly fishing shows, going to promote our guide service, and looking around, and we were talking about the demographic of people, and the majority of the people there were younger people, and there was tons of tattoos all over, and you got the hipster kids with the flannels, and everyone's got the same kind of look going on, but everybody had, a lot of them had tattoos. And I was like, man, I could really make a lot of cool fishing tattoos if I had a tattoo booth here at these shows. So I went and talked to Frinsky and stuff, and gave it a trial run. And it was insane. I was still earlier in my career too, so I wasn't, didn't have the presentation that I do now on all this stuff too. I had like a couple sponsors and things like tagged to the back. It just looked janky, but it was a slaughter fest. It was like, I turned down over 100 people. Every show is like that now.
Yeah.
But I never thought it would be the way it was. I thought maybe I'd do some fun fishing ones or something. And I couldn't, there could be 10 of us, and there still would be more people that, couldn't get tattooed.
Yeah.
So that was a big integration part too. And then I realized, that then it kind of made it a possibility, and that there was a convergence. There could be a convergence between the two, the tattooing, because art in itself has always been around fishing, like you were saying, but the tattoo convergence, I think that's when it started for me. And then I really wanted to work harder on combining the two, because I had tattooed before I started guiding, but I always fished before I started tattooing, and it was just such an ease on my mind to not have to think about switching gears, right? It was just one gear. And there was a tattooer named Robert Ryan. I listened to a podcast, and it was at this like this pinnacle time where I was probably searching for it the hardest, so I was probably more apt to like hear something in that way. And he was talking about a podcast, and it was just kind of divulged into like, you are that, right? Mm-hmm. You're not a tattooer and an angler, or you're not a podcaster and an angler. You're an angling podcaster. You're a hunter, right? So you're one unit, and you can focus all of that into just being you, instead of like trying to separate other aspects of yourself, and you spread thin, because then you're giving 50 and 50 instead of 100 altogether. Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like when you heard that, because I've heard this idea of compartmentalization.
Yeah.
There's like appropriate ways that, you know what I mean? There's appropriate ways to do that. And then there's ways that can be really powerful breakthroughs that I think help people actually have a better sense of self, which is kind of what I think you're like, you're not a different guy at the tattoo shop than you are in the stream.
Right.
But like, was it as simple as you heard that and something clicked, or was that something that you had to work on? Because I know a lot of people, whether they're a banker, but they also just like, because I've met so many amazing, even in the club, dude, like so many amazing people. They love fishing, they love life, they love food, but then they get on an airplane or they drive back home, and then they put on a collared shirt and they walk in, and it's probably, it's,
yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't look from the outside like a tattoo shop, but I think internally they're experiencing the same thing. Was it like a click, or was it a process?
It's absolutely a process. It's absolutely a process. And I think, just like anything, the more that you seek the answer to your question, just in the assimilation kind of theory, you're gonna see it more because you're looking for it more. So I think the more you look to converge it, especially in a creative realm, because sometimes it's a lot harder, in different areas than I think maybe in a creative sense, right? because I don't have kids in a family. So that's a big thing too. But just on the realm of not separating yourself, because like I think compartmentalizing art will dilute it. You know what I mean? You have to have free reign and an open playing field to explore and explode. But like, what if you took that into a social aspect or a fishing aspect or a life aspect, where if you opened yourself up to not having restrictions, and it was restrictions as in like, I have to be this way at work and that's who I am there, and this is why I have to be around my family, but this is who I am around my boys when I'm fishing, or my friends when I'm fishing, you know, if you can kind of just, I think it really helps actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like thinking as I'm talking, you know, I think it's probably a pretty healthy psychological thing to just all start just to be, when it all comes together, you become you more. Does that make sense? And you're not in your, that time that you're worried about switching over and opinions and opinions of this and how you have to act in certain ways. If you can kind of just find the middle ground of all of it, it's a lot easier on your mind.
Yeah, I've heard the word like alignment used, you know, in that sense. But like, I think too, there's something. One of the things I love about this weekend and just the guys in the club is like people are from all different backgrounds. You know, we got Bobby from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You know, we got guys who are in their 20s and guys who are in their 50s, and you know, I think it's a lifelong process to try to just be yourself, as simple as that sounds. I think a lot of people I know, when they get on a boat, they don't quite feel themselves, and when they go in the office, they don't quite feel themselves. And
Right.
the actual way to get there is like meeting in that middle place of like, you know, show up and be authentically yourself, let people accept who that is, like give them a chance to befriend the real you, like give them a chance to fish with the real you, work with the real you. That doesn't mean that like there's like, you know, you might talk differently, you know, at the office here, but you know, not accent wise.
No, 100%.
At the office I'm British, but no, but I think that's a really powerful thing at the end of the day, because we're all like chasing these fish, and like, you know, you came over here and like you wanted to be a part of this because you really like love the concept, and that meant a lot for me to be like, okay, like Casey's been around a bit and seen a lot of ideas, and that was like a blessing to me. But also, like you didn't have to come over here to chase a redfish. You could do that in the lagoon. But, you know, you came over here to meet people and experience it, and like it's nice to just like meet the person for who they actually are. It's going to be the most interesting, authentic, best person to meet is who they actually are. I think that's a hard process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the authentication comes, it's work. It takes work. But your soul will be happier and your mind will be more at ease. And I think it's, you know, it's just it's important to try to not put all your focus into that, but put some focus into your, you know, into yourself. Because if your mental and your whole state of being is happier and more confident, that's going to resonate in all parts of your life, right? Work, home, family, fishing, everything. And if you look at it from a standpoint of like, okay, how does that even work? If you look at someone that you look up to, or you think someone is cool, like, right, like that guy does cool stuff, you know, or you look at like a musician, they are who they are, right? Well, why not apply, they are who you are in your life, right? And people resonate to people who are authentic, or just, you know, going back to the cool thing, like anything that's ever been cool, like, right, like you're like, that's cool. The person did it because they didn't care about being cool, they just did it, right? They just did it out of just, this is who I am, right? And I think people can slowly integrate that into their own lives. And I think fishing is a good way to make an example of it. Is, you know, you see all these destinations and you see all these big fish and you want to catch that, and you start comparing yourself to that. But also, fishing is so great because it doesn't matter how good you are. You know what I mean? I'd rather hang out with people who are not as fishy, and their excitement and their love and their just being out there is higher than someone who's like, I've done this before. You know what I mean? Like, they're getting to the micro instead of looking at the macro. But I think it's important just to like step back and just enjoy who you are. You know what I mean? And life is easier.
To quote Matthew McConaughey, because you and I have been talking about Matthew McConaughey a lot, you know, somebody once told him, Matthew, you're so full of yourself. And he said, who am I supposed to be full of? And I mean, obviously he's not talking about being like conceited and, egomaniac,
Right.
but there's a sense in which like, just, don't try to be somebody else. Just be who you are. And if people click with that, it's like a really amazing thing. I've heard somebody say it's almost like when you're projecting an image and then people love you and they care about you and they're friends with you, but it's like the image. They're actually not loving you. They're not like, you don't receive that love. You don't receive that friendship. You don't receive that care the same way because it's a projection and you're deep down saying, if I was really me, they wouldn't love me. And that's actually a really miserable place to be. And we could get philosophical all day, but I do want to talk about pyramids.
Totally.
Because we're going to lose people. This is one of those things where it's like Casey and I at 2 a.m. in the morning and we're not losing each other.
Philosophical.
But I want to hear about pyramid because, like, I mean, when I met you, I was familiar with your art, and I really wasn't familiar with your, kind of history of fishing and your experience as a guide. And honestly, I just assumed, that you were from the Southeast, so when I learned more about you, I was like, oh wow, like that's a really fascinating story about how he got here. And a big part of that was Lake Pyramid. Can you share just a little bit about what you did, or Pyramid Lake, and like what you did there and what the fishing was like and how that kind of factored into your story, just big picture, all things pyramid?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the area too. So the rivers and lakes and pyramid stuff was around, since I was a kid, and we fished, but, there was definitely, I remember there was a few situations at Pyramid that like changed my life forever. Right. During the dark times, over a decade ago, wasn't making good decisions and I was not in a good place. And what literally saved my life was fly fishing, right? Mm-hmm. Like I was able to change my addiction and bad habits to an addiction for being outside and fishing. And I felt such an obligation to that place that did it for me. That's like where I was determined to I was like, this is what it did for me. I know how prolific my life and how much better my life got from being outside and learning how to learning how to fish, but learning how to do it well and really divulging into it. It saved my life. Absolutely. And then I became obsessed with that too. So every piece of literature I could find, every YouTube video I could watch, every time I could be at the lake, even if I wasn't fishing, if I just had to go and watch just to do something, I was just so obsessed with it. And then when I first started fishing there too, those fish are monstrous. So they're the largest, really truly like native kind of trout in the world that are from that area. I could spill some beans on some other lakes with big places or other places that, but they're from that area. They're from, they're naturally from that area. And I mean, they're getting monstrous now. They're almost 30 pounds, like catching a 10-pound trout is like kind of like your daily thing, right? Over there. So anyway, when I first started fishing there, this is the moment that I sent me to the full, I don't care about anything else but fly fishing for a while. Was I was out there and I knew the fish were big, and this is before a lot of the big fish were being caught, and I had a 5-weight hook into something and it spools me right on a 5-weight, spools me, runs. I'm like, this is awesome. And then pretty soon you start to see silver and you're like, this isn't awesome. And I'm like holding on. I remember holding on to I just grabbed the reel and the butt and everything at one time because I'm freaking out. And it was like, whop, 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 snap, like that. But and it broke me off with full fly line and all my backing out, And I'm sitting there like, there's something in here that's just monstrous. And then after that, I just could not, that was the chase forever after that. And then, so fast forwarding, all of those awesome feelings and all this life-changing stuff, I felt an obligation to share it, right? I was like, so you get to a point and you just hold and guard all these beautiful things that you've learned in life, or can you share them and hopefully someone else gets that experience too? You know what I mean? So that was the reason for guiding actually was fishing is the vessel to explain and plant seeds for thoughts in life situations. You know what I mean? And fishing is the best vessel, I think, for people that I can relate to. talk about a lot of stuff like that, and you can relate fishing situations to life situations, and that was one of my biggest things for guiding at Pyramid.
Yeah. No, I totally see that. I think, this weekend you can't control fish behavior. You can't control weather, as far as we have been confirmed.
Yeah. As far as
at least we can't. You and I can't control weather. But like you can control the conversations, the table that everything happens on. What is the vibe like? What's the environment like? Who are the people coming together? And really, at the end of the day, I think that's what most people are truly seeking. They're seeking to have these great experiences with a community of people who they feel connected to. We were made to be connected. You said something interesting I wanted to circle back to. So my experience has been, I know a lot of guys who have come out of some pretty heavy addictions.
Yep.
And like it seems like everybody who comes out of a heavy addiction is like so driven and like I mean, they have like it's almost like letting a dog out of it. Like I have a bird dog, you met Miller.
Yeah.
It's like when you let him out the cage and he has all this pent up energy and he's just like gonna go full force. Like I met guys who like they were deep in addiction and then they became like basically theologians, because they've like read like all these books on the scriptures and they're like and you're like, dude, like you read 40 books and you like watched 100 videos.
Yeah.
And it's like in fishing it's the same thing. What do you think that is?
I think it has to do a little bit with the idea that you can't really appreciate the light until you've seen darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the people have come out, if you come out of addiction, you're in a dark place that no one will ever understand. No one wants to be there, right? And life is not fun, and it's tough, and nothing about it is glorious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the point where you want change, you've put yourself in such a dark mental state that when you come out of it, like I remember kicking heroin, and I remember feeling the sun on my face for the first time, for real. You know what I mean? For real, the first sun. I remember walking out and I'm like, I felt sun and warmth and the outside and life again, right? And I remember that specifically. No, it was just on a front porch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was there a fishing moment with that like you said Pyramid saved your life, or fly fishing?
Yeah, well, that was the reason I wanted to. That was the reason for change and something to put my change into, right? Instead of like you having to go to like a rehab or something, right? If you have that personality, those are the people that are going to be great at stuff are usually addicted and obsessed, right? So like if it's and people with a high intellect are usually a little more likely to get addicted to stimulants. But if you can have a stimulant that's super productive, like fishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just switched that over, and it became so healthy. And then I realized how beautiful life is, and how the simple things are the greatest joys. So when you come out here, you have this giant epiphany, right? Like once you see the light again, it's 1,000 times brighter, and you appreciate 1,000 times more. And so when you come out, you're like so amped on life and positivity, because it's like a slingshot, right? You were so far brought down, and then you sling up because you were like, you're hitting bottom. And a lot of people pull down a little bit and they get slung up a little bit, right? But the people you're talking about, you're like, man, they just all of a sudden they read 40 books and they're just like pumped on life. I think it's a slingshot factor of like you're so low and you go doing and you go sending up, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then hopefully too, for mine was like I'm slinging up through the air and I'm like, come on with me, guys, come on, everybody up, and life's great. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, so you started your own. You started fly fishing, and you started hiring your friends, and you built this amazing guide service. And you said that for you, it was you were into fly fishing, and you wanted to share that experience with people. And obviously, part of that is putting people on fish. But you've shared with me a lot of the small things as you've kind of given me ideas and coached me some on what we're doing with Drifter, about how you try to help people get the most out of those experiences, whether it's cooking ribs, because we're both friends with Remick, and Remick was hooking everybody up and helping them with the grills, which, but like, tell me about like, okay, let's do a little scenario here.
Yep.
because you worked with one of our guys in the club on casting on this dock that we're sitting on, and you loved it, man. Like, he kept thanking you, but I could tell you were having like a fun time.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it wasn't like, hey Casey,
It was
like
a highlight.
if I would have kept making you draw on things, at some point you're like, okay, I'm tired of drawing on
Yeah.
things. Like I could see on your face you're having fun with him, right?
Yeah.
Teaching him how to cast. And let's just say that I'm new to fly fishing, and you have the opportunity to help me. You're saying, come on, as your slingshot.
Yep.
What does that look like outside of just putting people on fish? Like, what does it look like?
So are you talking about on a, like, you gave me a fishing scenario. Are you talking about how I would, what I would think about that scenario, or are you talking about in other aspects of life, I guess?
I mean, like, let's do a little role play of like,
Like if you were on my bow?
Casey, it's Pyramid Casey.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're trying to help me just really understand, like, and experience just fully what's so amazing about being outside and fly fishing and being in that environment. Tell me, like, what are the things you're thinking about outside of just putting me on fish?
Right. Okay. So for an example, say you're newer, and to catch fish, we have to get a good cast to a certain distance, right? And I know that there's steps leading up to catching fish that we can learn quickly, right? And you have an achievable goal really fast, right? So like we can get better at casting within an hour, right? And now they're pumped, I'm pumped, and the energy and the excitement and the hunger is even higher, right? Even if there's no fish, right? So we're working on casting. We're like, oh, we're getting farther, and you're like, yeah, dude, and he's pumped, or she's pumped, and we're getting excited. And what that's doing psychologically is building positive aura around the whole entire thing, right? And the same thing is like the fishing being a vessel, is you use that on like micro things, and they had something that they were self-conscious about, and now they're more confident, right? And you build all these little bits of confidence, and you psych that person out because it's important to them. They're on a trip, and they're doing something that isn't the norm for them, right? And it's an exciting time, so you need to facilitate that to the farthest extent, and plant seeds. So we were talking about casting, right? So once we're working on casting, you can start to relate things to other parts of life, right? Other parts of life that you're discouraged about, and you might be self-conscious about. But if you don't start giving a little bit of effort, right, it's just going to stay that way, right? So if someone doesn't work on their casting, they're going to stay self-conscious about it the whole time. But if you can excite them on that, right, and then you work on other things, but you explain to them why that's going on, they will truly start to build confidence in themselves, and you can apply it to other things in life, right? Like just anything outside of life, of relationships, or their own inner turmoils that once they start addressing and working with in a positive manner, how easy it is to get out of it. You know what I mean?
One of the things that surprised me this weekend, it didn't surprise me because of like my reader assessment on you, but it just surprised me on the baseline. Like I just kind of was like, okay, Casey's going to come, he's going to hang out. I knew me, you, and Chase would have fun fishing together.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that you would do incredible tattoos. I knew that you would have fun with the environment. But you were like the whole weekend, and this is just like the heart of who you are, but obviously you've also done so much guiding, and you've owned a couple businesses, really, that you were like wanting to chip in. You're like, I remember me and Chase left like super early one morning, and like we missed you by like 10 minutes. You're like, hey dude, I'll come help with breakfast. Yeah. I'm like, dude, like he's like fishing all day, he's tattooing, he's gonna also help with breakfast, like which is so generous and kind of you. And but one of my favorite moments of the weekend, just kind of like the little Polaroids that our mind keeps in the little on the fridge of our mind.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
Yeah, like all the little Polaroids.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Is like I remember like day one, we're just going down to the docks. It's like everybody's just amped up, dude, and you're just like high-fiving people and like tossing the guides their breakfast burritos, and like and you're really good at creating that energy. Use the word aura, like the aura around it, that hey, we're all here for the same thing. Like we all do want to catch fish, but like at the end of the day, like we want to have as much fun and just squeeze this baby for as much as we can.
Yeah.
And I have like that image in my mind of just like Casey just throwing a burrito to the guide. So I think you're really good at thinking about that part of things. And even with like the way that you relate to people while you're tattooing, you know, you're trying to getting a tattoo is an experience.
Absolutely. Intimate and trusting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a very trusting thing. I haven't thought of that word, but like
nobody, and no, there's nothing in the world that you walk into some dude and the dude's like looks grungy, and you walk in, you're like, I trust you with my life to permanently mark it forever. You don't trust your banker. You don't trust your doctor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might trust your doctor. Hopefully you trust your doctor. But like, you don't trust your real estate agent. You don't trust businesses that you don't know anything about. You don't walk in there and like, yeah, do this forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's I haven't, for all the tattoos. I have 3 tattoos from you now. I haven't thought of the word trust.
Yeah.
But think
because
about
it was inherent.
There's like the guy who gave my dad his heart surgery.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Highest level of trust.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
literally trusting my life. Airplane
absolutely.
pilots.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then like maybe like on some sort of parallel, but maybe I might even put, depending on who you are, tattoo even higher. It's like, I'm trusting you with my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And like a permanent aesthetic, like forever, you know, like, a plastic surgeon, you know, those things like that. But you're giving your full faith. And like, but what's funny is it's funnier because a tattoo, like you walk into a tattoo shop and they look like me, right? I'm like, hey man, you trust me? You know, versus like the doctor who's in like the office and he's got the, you know what I mean? Looks more trustworthy.
We talked about don't judge a book by the cover.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we all do. Like
I do it all the time. I did it.
Our mind has to. The world is so vast. People are so complex. The only way that our mind can seem to make sense of it is to generalize and lump together things. Like, it's just it doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you a human being, you know. But like it's funny because you think about tattoo artists, the average person wouldn't trust. They would check the average person would check to make sure their car is locked if they saw someone that looked like a tattoo artist by their car, but so they wouldn't trust them with their whatever valuable sitting in their car, but they'll trust them permanently with their skin.
Absolutely. And it goes on to like how you curate that. So like going back to what we were just talking about of like the doc stuff, right? I hope people realize how much of an impact they have around people around them, right? So we'll get it for an example and say, you know, maybe the conditions weren't great, right? But if you can go down there and you're like, it's going to be, dude, look how beautiful it is. It's so solid. You're going to kill it. Let's go, boys. You know, you're high-fiving and you're getting this excitement and everyone's amped up and now everyone's positive and they're running out and they're all stoked to run out. If you do the opposite, and I came down there like, dude, it's too windy out. You know what I mean? Like, are you guys going to be all right? Here's only for the thing you got for lunch. Hopefully you get some, right? Mm-hmm. It changes it completely. And their day is going to be changed. Mm-hmm. Right, for the worse. And if you can also change it for the better when you go out and you're like, we're all gonna slaughter today, dude. You guys, you know, this guy kills it. This is so great. You know, we worked on the casting last night. What are we gonna do? You know, like those things where people are so pumped up. You have that ability. So if it only takes 5 minutes to like pump somebody up, why not? It's free, and it changes their life or their day. You know what I mean? Or you could just be an asshole, you know, and ruin people's day. But for what? You know what I mean? So you feel better?
But I think a lot of people respond poorly to pressure. So like, you know, I'm an amateur tattoo artist because I did 3 squigglies on my wife's finger.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like,
absolutely. You need a job?
I sent you a photo of I had a little machine that I inherited from Chase because Chase is Chase and he's already on machine number 2.
Yeah, totally.
He's like, I've outgrown this thing, dude. I've been tattooing for 1 month.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, and so like, I go to make I say squiggly, but it was a small little symbol on my wife's finger. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of pressure here. Because also, like, the average person, like, you know, it's like, obviously you want to do a good job, but like, if that person's upset, they're going to like go live their life. But then it's like, with me, it's like, I like sleep in the same bed as this person.
Yeah,
so
you got to look at it all the time.
I really need this person not be too upset at me. But, you know, one thing about you is like, I'm going to make a correlation here. Like, you know, we were on those big redfish yesterday, and we're all teasing you all weekend because there's a photo of me and you, like, I'm pushing you, and I'm like looking really intense, and like my body's all like a bird dog, like pointy, and you're like
Too
your
casual,
shoulders are like relaxed back, and you're like smoking a cigarette. You're just like you're
I'm like zoned, like, wow, this is beautiful out here.
It's like
redfish, and there's like monsters.
Redfish, 100 yards. I think I saw a tail, and you're just like, okay, 100
cool.
yards. Let me finish this cigarette. I'm relaxed. Talk to me about handling pressure, because there's a lot of pressure in tattooing, but you handled those fish yesterday. The correlation is like you handled those big fish yesterday. Like it was super bumpy. Like me and Chase are both relatively athletic human beings. Bumping around and all of a sudden, like you're just like, okay, here we go. And I can't tell with you.
Yeah.
I can't tell if you're just like throwing some line out or if you're throwing at like a 35-inch redfish, because your body language and your pressure is the same. Like you don't like me. I'm a squatter. I don't boat rock anymore. So I've kicked that habit, but I like for whatever reason,
you get an athletic pose.
I'm like athletic stance. And get low,
Yeah.
It's like, but so tell me about like how would you coach somebody who's whether it's tattooing or whether it's fishing, dealing with pressure, because that's a big part. People struggle.
Yeah, I think dealing with pressure. So say I was on the platform, and the person was on my bow. I would let them fail. I would let them do it one time, right? I would let them do it maybe 2 times. But it depends on how many shots you get, obviously, too. But you're going to be more productive. You're going to be more. Are you good? Oh yeah, yep. You're going to be more productive if the person on your boat is in a positive state of mind and an alerting state of mind, right? So let them do it, right? Coming up, it fails. The like you're saying, the pressure or like getting frustrated with somebody isn't going to it's going to make it worse. It's going to make your job harder to put people on fish, right? Because their attitude's different. Now they're self-conscious. Now they're overthinking everything, right? But let people come into their own. Nobody wants to fly fish and learn everything from someone else and learn nothing themselves, right? So when you let someone experience that, right? Experience the failure. Okay, now let's break it down why it didn't work, right? Why it didn't work. I'm like, oh, I was just so excited. Okay. Right on. Now next time. Now, if I know that's the issue, next time when I see fish, I'm like, okay, let's breathe first, right? Or you can do something where it's
so important.
Yeah, breathing is good.
I try to do it every day.
Breathing is good. Yeah, breathing is good. Or just logically explain why it didn't work and let them come to their own conclusion of that too together, right? As a team, because you're always a team. And then now our team is going to figure out how to address that issue, right? So say it's a fear thing and a pressure thing. Realizing where you're at and being calm is so important, but it's so much harder said than done, or it's so much harder to be done than it is easier to be said, or whatever the saying is, But I think the person they'll never change if they don't know what's wrong, right? You know what I mean? But also too, I'd rather be more excited and get buck fever and than be too calm in a sense, because that's the exciting stuff. That's the exciting stuff. If things are going good and you're shaking and you're like not breathing, it's because you're filled with adrenaline and you're super stoked. You know what I mean? So then from there, enjoy that process, but also just like literally, if you take 1 to 2 seconds to think like, okay, here they come. Yeah, that would help, right? That helps. So I think it's addressing the problem as a team, and it's not one individual, but it's two, because if you have someone on your bow and you want and the team needs to be successful, you have to figure it out as a team. You can't get mad at that person, right? Because that does nothing. It makes it worse, So I think just staying calm under pressure is really just analyzing what's going on and breathing and it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say because you won't really get that until you've been there a few times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. So like our club videographer, Ian, he got to see his first redfish. He's a great angler. He's done lots of fishing, but like he was in a new context and like he was getting really excited and he was like, "Sorry, man, I'm just getting stoked." I'm like, "Dude, I'm happy.
Don't lose it. Don't lose it.
I'm so glad."
Yeah,
don't lose it. Yeah, that's good. And like I think that's learning how to tame that energy. I think is just part of what makes this whole world fun. Like he's killed elk. Dude, believe me when I need a new pair of underwear when I see my first elk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm sure, like, absolutely. That's cool. Like so, but another thing. So like you're you're good under pressure. But another thing that we should talk about, and I think this is a correlation between tattooing and fishing, which is kind of what I wanted to do today.
Yeah.
Was, there's like this like hunch thing. There's like this gut thing, right?
Yeah.
So like we were putting that green heron that I got, and I was like, hey, you figure out like what's like, what is he doing, like what angle he is. You're kind of looking at it, you're thinking about putting those puzzle pieces together, but you have to like kind of work with your hunch a little bit. And we got a chance to fish together, me, you, and Chase, and like we're in the situation where like the fish aren't tailing, and we had something that we wanted to go check out, and like we all had the same hunch that we should go check it out, but maybe we should stay. And me and Chase are like, we should stay and push up, and then when we went to go check out the thing, right, like we got there and it was already happening, which is like a good feeling, but not the best feeling, because like the best feeling is getting there and then it happening, because you got the whole, know what I'm saying? Like you didn't get the last slice of the pie. It's like you got the whole thing. And your hunch was right on that. And my hunch was super wrong. Like, we're going to push up. Yeah. We're like, should we? You're like, because you kept being like real chill. You're like, hey, like, should we go do that thing now? Or like, what do you guys think? We're like, me and Chase, like, we're going to push up shallower. We're going to make it even harder. And then we're going to have to pull all the way out and ride all the way.
Yep.
Talk to me about trusting your hunch, like as an artist and as an angler.
Absolutely. It happens a lot in tattooing, especially too. But I think going with, the more you put into it too, obviously you'll have a better chance at like a calculated guess, because everything's calculated guess. There's no for certain in fishing anything, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's certain you're gonna hold a rod in your hand, I guess, but there's no certainties in any of it. So I think maybe this goes back all the way to having confidence in yourself and your own thoughts. And like, I think a lot of it too is the idea of exploration. So you have confidence in yourself. Well, I'm going to backtrack. You have confidence in yourself, so you're more likely to take your step of your gut feeling, right? But if you think you're going to be wrong, you'll never take the step, right? And also too, like, it's really just about the probability of trying and having a success. We could try 100 different spots and one of them works, right? But if you don't try any spots, none of them are going to work. You know what I mean? So I think the idea of the exploration is important, because now now there's no what if we went out there, what if it was there. Now we know there's no fish here. Now we know there's the fish there, or the fish weren't there at the time. So I think going with your gut and being open to exploration, right? And fishing, that's what fishing is all about. Fishing, it takes you to the newest places. You're on an exploration of friendship, right? Of community, of where you're going. So why stop at a complacent point? You spend all this time and money and work and everything to explore, and you send it to this point. Why stop halfway? Why not send it a little bit more and explore a little bit more? And worst comes to worst, it didn't work.
Yeah.
But you still had a hell of a time doing it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Hell of a time doing it. And now and exploring something, now you know. And then we saw something that we never would have seen otherwise.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work, then we know that it didn't work. And it's okay. And it's okay.
But we both agreed.
We know.
I'd rather, not every day, but a lot of days.
Yeah.
I would rather figure something out I didn't know, even if it doesn't result in a catching fish.
Yeah.
Than catching fish I already know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's something really fun about getting that. You feel like you got a puzzle piece. You didn't just like check a box. Sometimes when you catch a fish, sometimes you just want to check a box. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you just need that box checked.
Yeah.
But catching a fish that you already were like, like I know that they do this, or I know that this is the way to do it, and then it happens. That feels really good. But getting a puzzle piece where maybe you didn't get what people would consider the full success, that's another piece. And I mean, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think on that is people are afraid, like failure. Nobody wants to fail, right? But in my life, my biggest failures were my biggest growths in learning, right? And experiences, right? Like, and it's how you take it. If you fail and give up, whatever, that sucks, But if you fail and you take it as a learning, you can learn more from failure than you can from success. So if you fail 100 times, now you're 100 times more wise, and when that one successful thing hits, it's even more special too. But you'll there's so much to learn from failure and not being successful, and how not to. There's so many things that you need to learn how not to do before you do it right. You know what I mean? And I think that's anything in life. That, you know, if you're afraid to take a chance or afraid to step forward, or, you know what I mean, in a realm of safety, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, I would personally, and I think you're the same, I'd rather, you know, fail 1,000 times and have one success. But I know I tried all I have no regrets of what ifs, right? Than like having a bunch of what ifs and being safe in a area where the high risk, high reward thing is, you know, we're a little bit more on the gambler wild sides on that, so too. But a lot of people like a little bit more, you know, less risk.
Well, when you go with a guide, the way that I look at it is when I fish with a guide, you know, a lot of times you're thinking about they're putting me on fish. And the way that they did that was you're basically paying them for their failures that they've known not to repeat.
Yeah,
that's another way
absolutely.
to look at it. And
Absolutely.
when I was a kid, the first ever whitetail deer I shot, I didn't make a good shot on it, and my dad had to finish that deer off.
Yeah.
And I was probably like 7 years old. I'm like, you know, around my oldest daughter's age.
Yeah.
I go back to this house and I meet the man who owns the land. His name was Wiregrass, and I saw this big deer on the wall. I'm a little kid, you know. And I point at the deer and I say, "Mr. Wiregrass, how many bullets it take you to kill that one?" And he said, "One. Why waste a bullet?" And he was that way. But he also said, my dad had asked him. He had all these notches on his gun. Every time he killed a deer, he put a notch on his gun. His gun was like, it was blasted.
Yeah, it looked like it got ran over.
Looked like a tattoo artist. Like, just like, we're blasted, you know. Yeah. And my dad asked him. He said, "If that gun could speak, what would it say?" And he's quick. You know, he's like one of them quick old guys. He goes, "That gun would say there's a lot of space around a deer." You know,
right?
And there's a lot
Absolutely.
of space around a fish. When you're on fish, there's the majority of the ocean, 99% of the ocean is, you know, like like you're playing like the lotto, but that guide has been like he's taking you to spots he knows, so you think he knows this spot, he knows this spot, he knows this tide, but you're not thinking about all the times that dude went out there and it was like goose egged out and didn't work.
You know, in just an example of just on a little bit of a casting realm as a small picture for the larger thing, you have a fish coming, right? And you try to lead it, and your cast goes too far left and it hooks, right? So from that failure, I know that you know, you can try to. Why did that happen, right? Okay, now I need to make my line needs to be a little bit straighter with my rod tip. All right, so the fish comes, rod tip straight, you get the good cast, but you didn't lead it far enough, and it didn't sink fast enough, right? So you failed again. But now you know where to put it. Now you know, okay, I need to keep my rod tip straight, and now I know I need to lead it more, right? So those two failures helped you become a better angler. You know, say the third time you get it, or maybe it's the sixth time. Maybe you don't even get it, right? But each of those times, if you break down why you failed, you'll learn. Rather than if you hit it first cast and you got lucky, and you think you're cool, right? What does that do? Mm-hmm. You get the fish, that's cool, but you didn't learn anything. You don't even know how you got it, right? You didn't even know why it happened. You didn't know that you have to keep your rod tip straight. You might have just got lucky, and the more you dial down your failures, you'll have a little bit less of them because you know why things work. So you'll have the first time 3 casts, right? Mm-hmm. A little bit down the road, 2 casts. Pretty soon it's 1 cast because you know why it's working. You know what you're doing. You didn't just get lucky, and then when you think you got stuff dialed, and you go to do it again and you blow it, and you blow it again, and you're not thinking about why am I blowing it. You're thinking about, oh, I've done this before, I should be able to get it. Mm-hmm. You know, then that's why going to those failures are the best learning lessons, because now you're that angler that failed and thought why he failed is going to be a lot more wise and a lot more calm than the person who's not kind of taking away the pieces of why they failed.
Man, I could sit on this dock all day. And,
absolutely.
And talk with you, but the good news is we're doing more trips together. We have a little segment of the podcast called Casey's Corner, named after the Casey's convenience store that we got some business from day one. But I want to hit you with a couple of rapid fires as we, you know. The first rapid fire is, do you think you will ever tattoo yourself again? Do you see that?
I don't think so. I don't really have a reason to. Some of my favorite tattoos are like really shitty friend tattoos that I got. You know, but I don't think I really have a reason to. I'd rather get a tattoo from you than tattoo myself.
Yeah.
Or like your dad.
Yeah.
Or something. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have that happen than tattoo myself. I can get a good tattoo from a good tattooer.
Are you saying my tattoos aren't good?
What?
I'm kidding.
No. But there's no reason to really tattoo myself.
Yeah.
There's nothing I get out of it, I guess.
What is the thing that you wanting to work on the most as an angler right now?
Spin fishing.
Spin fishing.
I would grow up. We were talking about this earlier. The Benjamin Button. I'm like the Benjamin Button of fishing, where like everybody starts spin fishing and they progress into fly fishing and then do other things. Whereas like I was a fly fishing trout guy, and then now I get here and I'm just like the little kid of like just learning how to spin fish. So I think learning other types of ways of catching fish helps you be a well-rounded angler.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've definitely lifelong learners, continual learners. You know, not that there's not plenty for you to learn in fly fishing, but it's just your human nature to want to learn and do new stuff.
Right.
And it just so happens that you started in fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very rare, but
yeah, rare.
But it's not surprising at all. Like when I meet people in fly fishing, they're often pretty good at cooking some stuff. They're often pretty interested in music and art, and you know, they just like to learn and see things and curate.
Yeah.
You know,
You're making something harder by fly fishing. You know.
Best boat meal.
Probably if you could just eat something from the ocean. Like if you can catch a fish and have ceviche. Or like, not ceviche, but like, or ceviche. Or like sashimi. That's the best boat meal.
Ceviche, you got to put a little time in. You got to have a long ride. You know,
yeah. But I think like a sashimi or something fresh that you had a part of dealing with and harvesting.
Okay.
Plus it's great.
Yeah. If you could only do one tattoo, you like magic genie pops up and says, Casey, you get one more. Who would it be and what would it be?
That's a good question. Maybe just a tattoo on my dad. He doesn't have any.
Oh.
Yeah.
What would it be if he said, you pick?
I don't know.
You talked about matching the aesthetic.
Yeah, I'd probably do like a heart with my mom's name in it. You know what I mean?
It's classic.
For him. It's
dude.
classic, clean. I love my wife. My first tattoo kind of thing.
What do you feel like is the greatest big picture life lesson that you've learned from all your years of being in the fishing space?
Going back to the learning from your failures and asking why. Ask why. Why everything happens for a reason in fishing. And if you start asking why, and then why that happens, and then why does that happen, you'll be your angling will grow 100%, 1,000%.
And then if you could change, this is the last one. If you could change, let me word it this way: if you could put one thing on a billboard that every person in the fishing community had to see, like a lesson, a rule, a kind of principle. You put a principle. What would you want them to see?
You still suck. Like, be humble, man. You're not. It's fishing. You like. Don't overdo yourself and your image, because at the end of the day, it's still fishing, and everybody wasn't good at one point, and that's the most exciting part. So I think just. You can't say be humble because that's cliche. I think just fishermen get it when you say you still suck. You still suck, which would be a great sticker. Yeah, the you still suck sticker. Yeah. Like when your friend like catches their first permit and you're like, dude, congrats, bro. Or you got like a guy who's just like, I just did this, crush, and you're like, here's a sticker for you. Yeah, because we all still suck. You know what I mean? That's a great approach to it. But we're having fun. And we're learning. Absolutely, man. Thanks for being a part of this weekend, dude. I'm excited to do more stuff with you in the future. Definitely a great connection, and just excited to see where all that goes. But thank you for my third Casey tattoo. You're welcome. And but more importantly, thanks for just being a part. You were such a great help to just the overall environment. Like, everybody loved being around you, even the guys who didn't get tattoos, who couldn't get tattoos because they wouldn't be able to go to Japanese spas. Yeah, which I mean, I get it. Dude. I get it, dude. I get it. I would. Casey would try to pass. He'd put like the cream on. To try to cover it out. Like, as much waterproof makeup as I could. Don't worry. I really appreciate you reaching out and inviting me, and having the idea that this could be a possibility. You know what I mean? And letting me get more involved than just being like the guy that's like, the tattoo person that hangs out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
Man, thank you, dude. You're so much more than, you're not just a tattoo. It's a
You're
full
not just-
circle. You're an angling tattooer friend.
I'm just me, man.
You're just you. You're Casey, dude. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for hopping on the podcast, and excited to do more.
Yep. Love you. Bye.